Okay, I decided to make this video, kind of inform people about wigs, because there are some people who are kind of misinformed about kind of an art that I've come to love. So, to start off with, before I talk about them by themselves or whatever, I'm going to talk about a lovely device called a color swatch ring, or a color ring, or whatever. I ordered this when Cosworks was still their own site, and I think they were only 12 bucks. But now, through Amphigory, where I'm getting all of my new wigs, I think they're 20 something, but they are really, really, really worth the investment because they will save you a lot of time, money, and energy when you're trying to select a color for your character's hair. And this doesn't include all the fun colors, which I'll get to later on. These are just the normal ones, and they also have all the highlighted colors and some of the weird ones that you really don't see, but you wish they had more of because sometimes they're the perfect color, but whatever. And to start off this video, I'm going to talk about different types of fibers that you usually find in wigs, and there's three main fibers that you usually see. And the first one is toyokalon. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's generally said to be lower in quality because it's cheaper, and typically if you find a wig that's $20 or under, it's probably toyokalon, maybe a lower grade of it. And in all these fibers, it does vary. All of them vary in quality between, like, sometimes you get a higher grade toyokalon, you get a lower grade toyokalon. And I found these wefts at Sally Beauty. I think it was really cheap. And this is a low grade of toyokalon. I just got it to kind of mess around with. And a lot of the fibers are super kinked up, and it's a thicker plastic, like a Halloween wig. And Halloween wigs are not suited for cosplay use because they shine a lot more and you can see all of the, like the, whatever. Don't mind that that's blue. And this one tangles super easily, and it's just gross looking, and I would never put this into a normal wig. And I have another wig that is a higher grade of toyokalon, and this is a cut enchantment from Amphigory. Like, these things go probably to your hips. This is fairly short, and this has been dyed. I'll get into dyeing later on. The strands are a little bit thinner, which makes it obviously softer, and it's a nice wig. And since it was longer in the beginning, the fiber is going to be a little thinner up here, which isn't a problem when you're working with the long wig because you don't want super thick. And it's stood up. I think this one was $42, which is very typical of a long, good quality cosplay wig, which I've had this for probably 3 years now, and it's still looking this nice. Obviously with care, and it has been stored flat and not destroyed. And the next fiber I'm going to be talking about is conakalon. It's very popular. You find a lot of the wigs made out of it, and it's probably the most versatile. I haven't gotten a lower quality conakalon yet. I'm not looking forward to the day when I do. And on a note of that, when on Amphigory they have the normal colored ones are a toyokalon, and then the fun colored ones are conakalon, which makes them a little bit $3 more expensive, but it's a higher quality fiber. And here we go. I don't have my conakalon wig up here with me right now, but this is the conakalon fibers in yellow, and they're very soft, and they look like the thickness of normal human hair, and it also takes to dye very well, which is another thing I'll be discussing. It's a good wig to start off with a beginner because you can't go wrong with it's the in-between quality, so you're not really going to be spending a super high amount of money, depending on your length. And of the fibers, lastly, I'm talking about Allura. There's a brand called New Look, and I think all of their wigs are Allura, and they said to be higher quality than everything else, but these fibers are a little bit harder to style with products or heat, which is what you use to style wigs, and they're a little bit harder to get dye into them. They can take little bits of tints, but not a lot. And now this wig I have here, I bought it in 144, which on Amphigori it said to be a fun color. I think so. It's called Gold Coin. It was originally bought for a Deidara wig because we didn't want to get a bright yellow. And then I had colored it to this color for an Orihime, which wasn't a very diluted red. And the color has stuck very well, but you have to remember when you're dyeing these wigs, using like a lot of hairspray on them will make them bleed a little bit, which I think is not a very bad trade-off for having a custom colored wig. And now to the next topic, you can dye a wig. Like I said, Allura is a little bit harder to take to wig, but Toyokalon and Kanekalon take to these dyes very, very well. And I know of about 3 ways to color a wig, which is either, before I get to that, you cannot, under any circumstances, dye or color a wig lighter. You have to remember, this is extruded plastic. All of the pigments are in the plastic, and you cannot change that whatsoever. You can leave it out in the sun, and it'll strip the color a little bit, but it's going to be super brittle, and it's going to lose a lot of luster. So, just maybe buy a little lighter and dye darker, which is usually a good rule of thumb. It's measure twice and cut once. So, the 3 ways to color a wig, or you can use Sharpies, and Copic markers are also going to be in there, which I've heard you can either hand color each of the fibers, which I have done, and it takes a very long time, then rinsing with cold water, or you can break open the Sharpies and mix them with 70% rubbing alcohol. Anything higher is just gonna, the color's just gonna strip off. And there's also FW acrylic ink. I haven't used FW, but I have used ink and a few other brands of acrylic ink. And that is what I've been using to color my wigs because it's a little bit more price effective for me, because I'm usually buying longer wigs and more expensive ones. And I'll put like links in for various tutorials I've seen of how to do this, because you really can't explain because it's not an exact science. And then there's also this lovely company called Petting Zoo Wig Design, and the owner Katie Bear makes and manufactures and sells her own wig dyes, which is, I haven't used them, but I have heard that they're awesome to use on wigs, and they stick better to Allura, which is more stubborn to take to colors, unlike Kanekalon and Toyokalon. Allura is better at taking tints than full-on colors. And so there we go. And you cannot dye a wig black and bright intense colors like such as reds or yellow. You're just better off on buying like this color or a red and then going from there, because you're going to get a diluted color and it's not going to look as bright and intense as you want it to. And next topic, different forms that fibers come in. You'll sometimes see braiding and weaving hair. All braided hair is unwefted hair, and wefting is this little track at the top. And this is weaving hair. Weaving hair has the weft, and braiding hair does not have a weft. And these are also called tracks, which I've heard people call them. And these can be sewn right into the wig. But these, you either have to make your own wefting for them, or just, you can use wide needles and put them into wigs and heat seal. This is my heat sealer. And this gets to probably 450 degrees, so it will melt and slag up the plastic, and it hurts if you burn yourself with this. But I think this is $20 at Sally, and they also sell heat sealers, a bunch of other forms. And you can find them on Amazon, and usually not typically in stores around where I live at least. So, and there's different kinds of extensions as well. These are called silky extensions, where I think these are Kanekalon. You can put them right into a wig and they're going to blend in, they're going to look nice, and they're going to add a fiber wherever you need it. I don't have any with me, but there's also another fiber called jumbo braid. They're not meant to add straight to a wig because they're fairly kinked up and they're big and poofy, and usually use them to make dreads or like in giant curls. I've used them before. You can straighten them, but they're not going to be typically as soft. They're more for look and show than actually functioning. And there also is some companies who do sell wavy and curly extensions. So they're already pre-curled, so all I have to do is just do your little magic and add them to the wig. And you really can do anything with a wig. You can part them, but when you're parting a wig, you have to be careful of these guys in the back. The wefts, and then the little things. And there's a tutorial on Petting Zoo wig design where you add the fibers and part them for ponytails so they look nice, because I've only seen 1 or 2 different kinds of wigs that have pre-built parts put in, because nice wigs come with these little skin tops, and I'm sure they're probably like a rubber, I don't think they're silicone, with the hairs knotted into them so they look very natural when you're wearing them, because ones that do not have the skin tops are typically the punky wigs where they're big and poofy at the top. And I like skin top wigs because they look a little bit more nicer with your costumes, but depending on the tops you may not need them, like with how the hair's like situated on the head. And I can also add in how to tell the difference between a good and a bad wig. Halloween wigs. The wefting is probably an inch or so like separated, which there isn't going to be as much fiber because it's going to be cheaper. But this is the inside of a good wig. These wefts are probably about a 1/4 inch apart, so there is a lot of fiber in them, and it's a fairly thick wig, very thick wig, but it looks like real hair. So this doesn't have as nearly as much hair as a human head does, but it's going to get the job done and it's going to look nice. And I can add a few more things to this before I have to cut off the video. That when you have slicked back hairlines, you either, like when your character has them, you can either have like short bangs that kind of go down like that, or you can do what's called lace front. And lace fronting is where you individually knot the hairs into a piece of lace. It's not like fancy lady lace. This is more like, it's like pantyhose without the stretch. And there's a lot of videos how to do that, but I think, I don't think I've become a snob towards wigs, but I think a wig looks nicer when you've put more time and energy into it, because if you've spent all the time on your costume, why wouldn't you want your wig to look as nice? And so I think that's it for now. And if anyone has questions or comments and maybe wants to add a little bit to what I said, you can put them into comments. And happy costuming!